money as we know it today. They were still exchanging other things, weren't they? Like gold and silver. And if you go back even further, maybe seashells. So I hear. I wasn't around that. But today, is paying for things with gold and silver practical? Really not. You can't go down to Burger King and shave off your gold bar, you know, some gold shavings to pay for a Whopper, can you? And what about credit cards? Because it literally, from the time that the banks and the governments tried to replace people's gold and silver with paper money, it took almost 400 years for that revolution to become mainstream. People didn't want to let go of the gold and silver. Now, more recently, we've had introduced the credit cards, right? I mean, probably most of us have credit cards, although most people in the world don't have credit cards. They can't qualify for them. But credit cards took a lot less time, didn't it? It took about 50, 60 years for credit cards to become mainstream. I remember when I was traveling 20, 25 years ago, not every business accepted credit cards. As hard as that is to imagine, but not every business accepted. It's really only been in the last few decades that, you know, credit cards are pretty much accepted everywhere today. But is credit cards a really good way to exchange value? I mean, has anyone here besides me been a victim of credit card fraud? Oh, you have? How many people here have a business with a merchant account or know someone with the business and they deal with chargebacks? I mean, that is a real pain. Not only chargebacks, but credit card fraud. Not to mention the banks raising fees or raising reserves because they put you in a higher risk category or freezing your account. But the thing about cryptocurrency is anyone can set up a wallet. It's free. It's easy. Doesn't take much time. And they literally now have their own private bank. They don't need a third party. They don't need anyone's participation, involvement, or approval to send something of value to someone anywhere in the world. And literally a fraction of the time that they would normally transfer through the bank or Western Union or MoneyGram or PayPal or something like that. Literally seconds, minutes, and for a fraction of what it costs. But the best part that most people like is they don't have to fill out all the forms. They don't have to get anyone's permission or pay any of the high fees. It's between person to person, whoever you're receiving or sending to. And that's how Bitcoin works. Now, how many people here think Bitcoin was the first digital currency? Most people think that. But actually, Bitcoin was not the first digital currency. There were digital currencies before Bitcoin, but they failed. Bitcoin, though, was the first cryptocurrency. And I want to make that distinction before we really get into things here tonight, because there's a lot of digital currencies out there. A lot. There have been a lot in the past, there's going to be a lot in the future, and they're going to come and go, come and go, come and go. Now let's talk about why there's a difference between a digital coin and a cryptocurrency. The difference with a cryptocurrency, which is what Bitcoin is, Bitcoin was the world's first decentralized distributed network that ran on a blockchain, was encrypted. It was secured and protected by the blockchain technology. Now, if we had more time, we could get into some of the technical aspects of blockchain technology, but if you're paying attention to what's going on in the world, and I encourage you, if you're not, start. Everybody, banks, governments, businesses are starting to utilize and incorporate blockchain technology. Now, Bitcoin is just an application of the blockchain technology. But you see, the reason that Bitcoin became successful and has become so dominant in the space, that people will trust it, believe in it, have confidence in it, is because it's proven itself. There have been nearly 200 documented cases of where the establishment has tried to hack the blockchain. Because maybe you've already learned that in the beginning there was a lot of resistance to Bitcoin, because it really threatened the establishment, didn't it? Threatened the banks and the governments and their economies. And so, if that were the case, it's not surprising that they would try to stop it. or at least slow it down with propaganda and misinformation and things like that. Thank you. But the reality is that no matter what they've tried to bring up against Bitcoin, it has survived. It's overcome. It's never been hacked, and it never will be hacked. In fact, it's becoming increasingly difficult with more and more transactions and more computers mining Bitcoin for it to ever be hacked anyway. Even when people start talking about quantum computers, but usually they don't even know what they're talking about anyway. But the reality is that is why Bitcoin has become the dominant cryptocurrency. Now, it's not the only cryptocurrency. There are other cryptocurrencies, and Bitclub Network mines those as well. We not only mine Bitcoin, but we also mine others, such as Ethereum and Ethereum Classic and Zcash and coins like that, Monero as an example. And we will mine others because there will be other cryptocurrencies in the future. But let's talk about some of the things that makes Bitcoin unique. First of all, it is a decentralized platform. Now, most people, when they hear that, they don't know what you're talking about. And I'm not going to ask you whether you do or you don't, because I'm not here to embarrass anybody. But the reality is most people don't know what a decentralized platform is versus centralized. It's very simple. A centralized platform, like these digital scam coins, can be controlled and manipulated by these people that just miraculously create these digital tokens out of thin air. They can control it, they can manipulate it because it's theirs to do. However, Bitcoin is on a decentralized platform, meaning no one owns it. No person, no group of people, no companies, no corporations, no banks, no governments. Nobody owns Bitcoin. It's really the people's coin. Yes, community. No one can control it. No one can manipulate it. No one can hack the blockchain. And the blockchain and the mining that we talk about, what mining simply is, it's not picks and shovels. I mean, a lot of people think you're talking about picks and shovels when you talk about mining. But literally, we have a global network, a distributed network of hundreds of millions of computers that are doing the mathematical calculations to solve the algorithm, because every 10 minutes there's a new block, and whoever solves the math, because there's many mining pools, whoever solves the math is awarded the Bitcoin. Now, when Bitcoin first started being mined, every block, 50 Bitcoin were awarded. And then it halved after 210,000 blocks, which is around the start of 2013. And then it went to 25. That's what we mean by halving. And then it halved again in July of 2016, and it went to 12 and a half. And today, where is it at? It's still at 12 and a half, but it's going to halve again in 2020. About every 4 years it halves. And so when it halves the next time, the rewards will no longer be 12 and a half Bitcoin per block, they'll be 6 and a quarter. And the next time it halves, it'll be 3 and an 8. And that will continue to halve until the year 2140. And that's when the last Bitcoin will be mined. Now, the good news is, if you've been following Bitcoin, how many people here have been following Bitcoin long enough to see it go up in price? How many have been following it long enough to see it go down in price? Now, I celebrate when it goes down in price. And any Bitcoin blockchain expert celebrates when there's a correction in the marketplace. It gives us an opportunity to sell high when we set new all-time highs to sell and take profits. And then when the market corrects, because that's always what happens, right? When you have a lot of people selling, what happens to the price? And when you have a lot of people buying, what happens to the price? And so it goes like this. But what it really does is it goes like this. Because it keeps going up and up, right? If you had talked to me a year ago, I would have encouraged you to get involved with Bitclub Network, as I will encourage you to do so tonight. I would encourage you to get into Bitcoin mining to whatever degree or level you could. And those that listen to me are now thanking me. And others that didn't want to take the time to learn about Bitclub Network or Bitcoin mining, I said, look, at the very least, go out and buy some Bitcoin. And some did. and some didn't. Now those that didn't are full of what? Remorse and regret. Because about this time last year, you could buy Bitcoin for under $1,000 a coin. And then what was the last all-time high for Bitcoin, which was hit in December of last year?
19,000 change.
Yeah, just under 20 grand a coin. Now, if you'd have bought at 1,000 and sold at 20, would you have a smile on your face? And the more coins you had bought, the bigger the smile would have been, right? Now, a lot of people are like, well, why is the price now half of what it was in December? Well, first of all, you know it went from about 10,000 a coin to 20,000 a coin in a period of about 2 weeks. Is that real? Now, there were factors in the marketplace, a lot of positive news with licenses being issued to 2 major companies that were going to start trading Bitcoin. Major institutions like Goldman Sachs were getting involved and behind Bitcoin. A lot of positive news. And when positive news comes out, what does it do to the price? Now, none of us in the cryptocurrency space expected Bitcoin to hit 20,000 a coin last year. But we knew it would go over 10,000. And we knew that in January it would correct, because what happened in January of 2016? Anybody know? There was a correction. Do you know what happened in the first part of 2015? There was a correction. Every beginning of every new year, there's usually a significant correction. Now, that is a time really to celebrate. Because do you want to buy high or do you want to buy low? If you're going to get in the game, you want to buy low. The problem is, whether it's real estate or Bitcoin or something else, most people make the mistake of buying high because they get so caught up in the fear of loss, the sense of urgency. Oh, it's getting too expensive. Houses are getting too expensive. And they go out and they start buying houses, right? Or buying Bitcoin when it's up here. That's when I'm selling. Makes sense, doesn't it? And then if there's a correction, as there always will be, and that's one of the reasons you know it's real. Does the stock market go up and down? Do currencies go up and down? Anything of any value is going to go up and down. Now, Bitcoin was originally viewed by most everyone as a store of value, a great store of value. That's why they called it digital gold. You know, digital gold, Bitcoin. Great store of value. But now we have countries that have actually began to recognize and pass laws that are giving Bitcoin a lot of credibility as currency, as legal tender. As a matter of fact, Japan is one of those countries. Now, Japan's not the only country that's done this, and it won't be the last country that does this. And eventually, I'm sure the United States government will as well, because it gives them the ability now to start to tax it. And you know they love to tax them. So it's inevitable that it will. Now, when people say, well, they legalized it, yeah, but it was never illegal. When we talk or hear things about legalizing it, sometimes people get the wrong impression. It was never illegal. Okay, but they legalized in the sense they started regulating it and recognizing it and classifying it as legal tender. Now, the IRS here in the U.S., did you know they accept Bitcoin to pay your taxes? Yeah. Now, the IRS classifies Bitcoin, though, as property. That'll probably change. But we're not here to talk about that tonight. The reality is that right now is an opportune time, because I wanted to bring this up because I don't know if you've experienced it, those of you that are in Bitclub Network, but you know, a lot of people that are in Bitclub Network, they come to me and they say, you know, look, people get so nervous and so paranoid and over anxious over the price of Bitcoin when it goes down. That's why I shared what I shared with you a minute ago. That's not the time to be nervous. That's the time to be excited. That's the time to get in and to buy. Because it's going to go up. We have seen over time it's gone up. How many people here got involved with Bitcoin when it was under $1,000 a coin? Under 500? Under 250? Only a few of us. Well, good for you. Now, how many of you wish you'd have gotten involved with Bitcoin when you could have got it for under 250? How much would you have bought? Because I brought my time machine. I want to take anyone that wants to go back in time a few years to buy some Bitcoin. How many people would like to take that trip with me? Would you buy some Bitcoin? How much would you buy? Absolutely. Well, here's what I want to stress. I said that because I wanted to say this. If you understand that your 2020 vision, or that your rear vision is 2020, what we need to concentrate on is really educating ourselves. Because when you really start to educate yourself and you really start to understand, we have a much brighter future. There is much more opportunity ahead of us to make money than the opportunity of the past. Now, when you fully grasp that, and I know a lot of you have, but some of you are just beginning this journey, and so you haven't had enough exposure yet, and you haven't done enough due diligence yet, and documented enough stuff yet, and all that, but if you will stay on this course, stay on this path, and you get that education, I guarantee you, you will do everything in your power to acquire as much Bitcoin or other legitimate cryptocurrencies, not these fake coins, but legitimate cryptocurrency, because it's inevitable it's going to go up in value. Less than 1% today of the population are even aware of Bitcoin. And even less own any. Now, I'm not going to ask who owns any here, but here's what I tell people when I ask that first question. Remember the first question on a scale of 1 to 10? If they tell me they're a 3 or above, I ask them a very simple question. First, I congratulate them. I'm so glad that you have been educating yourself and getting up to speed. And so you obviously own Bitcoin, right? If they say no, I know they're not a 3. Because if they're a 3 or above, there is absolutely no way they would say, oh, I don't own any. Really? Why not? Why not? Now, if I could guarantee that Bitcoin in less than 10 years would be $1 million a coin, how many would you want today? Because it's better to accumulate them today at this price than it is a year from now when it's 50,000, 75,000, or 100,000 a coin. Isn't it? And with Bitclub Network, we have the opportunity to earn Bitcoin multiple ways. So before I shift gears and start talking about the Bitclub Network model, let me just pause and ask if anyone has any questions. We're all among friends here, so if you have a question, please feel comfortable enough to ask. But if you have any questions, because I haven't had enough time to really explain Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining and blockchain technology thoroughly. But I've tried to give you a big picture of what is going on. Enough to at least encourage you to pursue this further. But if you have any questions, please, don't hesitate. You can ask. I may not know the answer, but you can ask. No questions? All right. Well, how many people here would like for me to shift gears then and talk a little bit about Bitclub Network and Bitcoin mining? Okay, great. Well, Bitclub Network is owned by its members. We're set up like a cooperative enterprise, and the members actually own Bitclub Network. So if you are involved, or if you choose to get involved, you'll become like an owner in Bitclub Network. We chose to set it up that way based on the best legal advice that we could get. And we wanted to set it up in a similar fashion to the way the blockchain community and Bitcoin is set up. More of a decentralized as opposed to a controlled and manipulated business, rather owned and controlled by its members. Now, we started out as Bitcoin mining, and today that's still our core competency. We have been recognized over and over again as the fastest growing Bitcoin mining pool. And we have reached a point now where we're ready to go to the next level in terms of our mining equipment. We have already bought and paid for roughly 2,000 petahash of computers. Now, a lot of people have never heard of a petahash, but a lot of people have never heard of a terahash, or any kind of hash, except maybe the hash that you smoke.
I heard of that.
And that's not the kind we're talking about. So let me give you some perspective. When we started almost 4 years ago, we ran S3 computers because they were the best computers money could buy. And 1 petahash of computers, we needed an airplane hangar. Anyone ever seen an airplane hangar? Is that a pretty good size structure? 1 airplane hangar, 1 petahash. Now, obviously when the S4 computers came out, we sold the S3s, we upgraded to S4s. When the S5 came out, we got rid of the S4s, upgraded to S5. That's why we've been able to continue to establish ourselves as a major leader in the Bitcoin mining arena. And then, of course, there were no S6s, so we upgraded to S7s when they came out. There were no S8s, so we upgraded to S9s. And, of course, the S9s came out with 28 nanometer chips, which were amazing until the 16 nanometer chips came out. And so we upgraded everything to the 16 nanometer chips, which are exponentially faster and more efficient than those. However, Andy, you may know this. I don't know, other than Bitmain and Bitfury, who we buy the equipment from. They're the 2 biggest manufacturers and most respected. Other than them and us, we're the only ones running the 16 nanometer chips, right?
Yep.
Now, what that means, folks, I just wanted to verify, because Andy is, I mean, he's more technical than I am. And he's also got a great relationship with the folks over there at Bitmain. So I saw you talking to Yoshi. So at any rate, I tend to rely on experts. Don't you think that's a good strategy? And I know Andy's a tremendous expert, but here's what that means. If you are running S9 computers, you're competitive if you're running the 28 nanometer chips. But if you're not running 28 nanometer chips and S9 computers, you're really not even in the game if you're trying to mine with older equipment than that. But the reality is, who has the competitive advantage? The 28 nanometer chip users or us with the 16 nanometer chip users? We're exponentially faster. So that means we can do trillions and trillions and trillions of calculations, many more calculations every minute than anyone else that's running inferior equipment.
So the fastest is the 16 nanometer.
For now.
For now.
For now.
Very soon it's going to be much faster.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, you think it's okay to tell them?
I think so.
We have established great relationships with Bitmain, who also runs Antpool and some other Bitcoin mining pools, which Antpool is the largest Bitcoin mining pool, as well as our relationship with Bitfury. We order equipment a year in advance, and we prepay for it. So you know that makes you, when you're buying the most equipment and frankly everything that comes off the line that they sell, so that no one else can get these 16 nanometer chips, we're their best customer, right? But we're still at their mercy. And right now, our sales have exceeded their ability to deliver us equipment. We bought and paid for equipment that's already supposed to be delivered and installed. And some of it is being delivered and installed and has been since the first of the year, and more will be over the course of the coming month and months. But eventually, in the not too distant future, we will be installing our own equipment, our own chips, which will be the newest and next generation, even better than the 16 nanometer chips. Now, folks, here's what that means. That means we're no longer at the mercy of Bitmain or Bitfury. Now, they've been good to us, and we've been good for them. But the reality is, they charge so much for equipment because they make a lot more money if they put it online and mine Bitcoin. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Now, we still get the best price because we buy so much and we bought for so long, and we order a year in advance and prepay it. So we're always first in line. But we're still paying about 10 times more for equipment than we can manufacture it for ourselves. So think about that. Come July, when our equipment is installed that we're manufacturing ourselves at 10% of the cost of, well, other people can't even buy at our price, but let's just say they could. We're still able to bring online 10 times more equipment without changing anything. The revenue model that we have, the business model that we have, will enable us to start bringing on 10 times more equipment. Folks, let me tell you, from July forward, if you're not a superpower, because this is an arms race, that's how I refer to it. When you're mining Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, it's an arms race. And you hear these companies that are starting up saying, oh, we're going to get into Bitcoin mining. First of all, they can't even get the best equipment. And what they can get, they're going to pay way more than they should for it. They're going to pay way more for electricity. They're going to pay way more for data centers. So how can they even be competitive in the first place to someone like us? Because think of it this way. Does a militia have a chance against a superpower with nuclear capabilities? Because that's the difference between the big, giant pools of which we've become one of. And we're about to become, I believe, in the not too distant future, I think you would second that, the biggest mining pool in the world. And we are Bitclub Network. Which means that what is good is going to get so much better. Now here's the reality. A lot of people say, well, what if I wanted to mine with this company or that company? I'll just throw out a name. Anyone heard of Genesis Mining?
Yes.
We do business with them too. We have more mining equipment than they do. But if you want to mine with them, you can. In fact, some friends of mine actually started mining with them, so I know what their returns are. And we compared their returns to my returns. And even though right now we're historically paying out less than we have in the past, that's about to change. We're going to get some big bonuses, and obviously we're ramping up our power. We're going to go from roughly 600 petahash to 2,000 petahash in, the next couple of months. So we're going to see bigger and better returns. But even the returns today are still 46% better than Genesis. So why would you mine with Genesis? On top of that, not only are we mining and paying out 100% of what we mine every day to our members. We're the only pool in the world that does that. Pays out 100% of what we mine to the members. We also set up our model so that the members could automatically repurchase, so that they never have to come out of pocket. Because would you rather have more machines or less machines? More. Now, would you rather pay for them or let your mining pay for them? We set it up so that you can let your mining rewards, most of it goes into your wallet, and if you need to spend it, you can. I encourage you, don't spend your Bitcoin, save them, because they're going to be worth more tomorrow than they are today. So, if you have to spend them, I understand, you got to eat, but try not to sell your Bitcoin if you can avoid selling your Bitcoin. But the reality is that going forward, with the amount of mining power that we're bringing online in the short term and especially the long term, I don't see how these other little mining companies will be able to compete. Do you? So when is the most opportune time to get involved with Bitclub Network? We're not some startup fly-by-night company that's unproven. We're almost 4 years old. Everything that we say can be backed up and documented on the blockchain. We're totally 100% transparent. When do you ever find a company do that? I have friends try to pitch me on this, and they try to pitch me on that, and so on and so forth. And I tell them, where's the proof? Where's the documentation? If you're not restricted by or confined by the truth, they can tell you the most unbelievable story. And it sounds so good that you want to believe it. And unfortunately, most people do.
So what you're saying is the faster your computing power, the more you're going to beat the other guy in solving the equation.
It's a race. It's a race.